Okay, folks. Well, in the wake of the Ed Gein Netflix series, and we saw one on Jeffrey Dahmer that starred Evan Peters, and we've got another one coming up. I think it might be Peacock that's doing the John Wayne Gacy. This has just become kind of like this wave of true crime fiction. Unfortunately, it's an odd thing. We talked about it on Hit the Bricks a couple weeks ago, and Lee from Drum Dums and Nick from the Lost River Drive-In, they're kind of the mind of, it's okay if things are embellished, exaggerated, or just flat out made up because, it is for entertainment. And, we have access to resources where we can find out what's true and what isn't. And I think those points are certainly valid. We do all have the tools to go out there and find out, the lies and the exaggerations that are told in this Ed Gein monster, limited streaming series or whatever. But the way that I feel about it is kind of like how Osgood Perkins feels about it. So we're going to jump into this story here. This one comes to us by way of John Squires over at Bloody Disgusting, and the headline reads, "Monster, the Ed Gein story. Osgood Perkins questions the Netflix-ization of real pain." And before we get into this, I kind of just laid out the groundwork. Let me know in the live chat. If you're watching after the fact, jump on into the comments. Let me know. Do you enjoy these kinds of series? Are you the kind of person that you do know the truth, or this makes you dive in and research and find out the difference between the show and real life? Do you enjoy the shows because you don't really care? That could be another one. Or are you of the mind of like, yeah, this is pushing some sort of boundary that doesn't need to be pushed, or it's delving into territory where maybe these real life monsters are sort of being glorified a little bit. I'm curious to know what you think, so jump into the comments, let me know your thoughts there, and let's get into the article here. And we got that shot there of Charlie Hunnam as Ed Gein. I think that's another thing that kind of rubs me an odd sort of way is, they do a great job with the makeup and trying to make him look like Ed Gein here. But, with Evan Peters and Charlie Hunnam, I don't think it's controversial to say that both of those guys are like sex symbols, or at least that they're looked at as being very attractive by a large, amount of the population. So it is kind of odd as well to cast sex symbol celebrities as these monsters, especially when they are better looking than them, even with the makeup and everything. Anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent. I'm not jealous. No, not at all. I'm not jealous of anyone's looks. So the article says here, while true crime shows like Monster, the Ed Gein story have proven to be incredibly popular on Netflix, it's not hard to at least ponder what purpose they end up serving. In the case of the Ed Gein story, the third season of Ryan Murphy's series based on real-life monsters, the clunky and questionable driving force behind the series seems to be to humanize and empathize with Gein, presenting him as something more than the grave-robbing boogeyman who inspired Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But while those movies loosely drew inspiration from Gein's horrific crimes and created fictional characters out of them, Monster, the Ed Gein story, essentially presents itself as the true story of Ed Gein, not so much a monster, but a man driven to do monstrous things. By the end of the series, I personally found the whole endeavor to be a baffling and tasteless misfire. And of course, the I there is John Squires' I am reading his articles. John, love your work. If you ever want me to do the audiobook version of the Bloody Disgusting website, just let me know. And John continues by saying, but the Ed Gein story does present some interesting ideas, particularly in the way it plays with Ed Gein's aforementioned inspiration on Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Silence of the Lambs. The series attempts to draw a clear parallel between Gein and the likes of Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill, bringing those movie characters back to life on screen. In the process, Murphy and his team end up turning Anthony Perkins, Alfred Hitchcock, and Tobe Hooper into characters in their show, which is quite fascinating for horror fans. But what does Osgood Perkins, the son of the late actor Anthony Perkins, feel about Monster, the Ed Gein story? Chatting with TMZ, he reveals that he wouldn't dare watch the series. While Perkins told TMZ that he, quote, wouldn't watch it with a 10-foot pole, he did question the way Netflix and other streamers have turned true crime into a profitable entertainment industry. Perkins notes that it's all become, quote, increasingly devoid of context, and that the Netflix-ization of real pain is playing for the wrong team, end quote. He's particularly talking about the attempt to turn these real-life horror stories into, quote, glamorous and meaningful content, and he worries about contemporary culture being, quote, reshaped in real time by overlords. I will say this really quick before moving on to the end of the article here. I am right there with Oz, and I'll talk a little bit once we're finished reading the article here. And the article closes out by saying the depiction of Perkins in Monster, the Ed Gein story becomes particularly uncomfortable when the show seems to draw a parallel between Gein and Perkins, essentially suggesting that Perkins' secrets about his sexuality are somehow akin to Gein's own dark secrets. It's something the series never ends up exploring further, leaving only a bad taste in the mouth. So yeah, they say Joey Polari plays Anthony Perkins in the show. There's a shot of him and looks like Hitch as well. I mean, man, the production design and the costume design, like this all looks really good. The show's got a great look to it. But I will say, man, so that last little bit of the article is troubling, right? So you're taking a real life person, and if what John, like I haven't seen the show, but John Squires has seen the show, and what he's saying is, to him as an audience member, it seemed like they were, yeah, drawing those parallels between hiding your sexuality and having that be like somehow, you know, not maybe like a metaphor for a crazed killer or some sort of human monster hiding their own, you know, sick actions or sick desires. I think that's pretty off base and pretty rough. So I can't blame Osgood Perkins for feeling the way that he does, right? I mean, it's his dad. And then also, you know, he works in the industry as well. So he's not only is Oz a director, he's also a writer, and he's, you know, this is something that horror is something that he really loves. And I think he makes a really good point when he talks about, you know, just sort of exaggerating and glorifying and, you know, making entertainment and profiting off of the real pain of others. And yeah, you know, I also think it's when you make things up in these stories. So is the true story of Ed Gein not fascinating enough? Is the true story of Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or BTK or any, like, the true story is fascinating and disturbing enough. So when you embellish and you make things up and all that kind of stuff, you're not telling the truth and you're leaving it up to the audience. You're putting the onus on the audience to go and research these people and find out what you're lying about. When the show is presented, the way they present it to the audience is, hey, this is very, very accurate. Like, of course, it's all going to be a little bit different from the real thing, but we're basically telling like 98% of the truth, which is not even close with the Ed Gein thing and not close with the Dahmer stuff either. So that stuff just all kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. I don't think I'm being precious about it. I don't think I'm clutching my pearls about this one. I don't feel stuff-shirted or any other kind of euphemism that you want to use to describe somebody, you know, being kind of a stick in the mud about it. Again, if it's something you enjoy, then that's awesome for you. I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I would never want to censor a creative mind or prevent people from enjoying media that they like. But this is something that's just not for me. And I am happy to see that Oz has come out and said something about it. And it makes me proud as a fan of his, honestly. And, you know, I didn't expect to see anything like this from him, but it makes me feel like in some sort of way, my thoughts and feelings are a little bit validated as well. So, you know, there it is. That's how I feel about this kind of stuff. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the live chat if you're hanging out. If you're watching after the fact, jump on into the comments. Give me all of your thoughts down there. You can hate on me or agree with me, whatever. We can still have a chat about it. But thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Heck, if you enjoyed this video, hit the hype button as well, because we are covering horror news all the time here. Movies, TV shows, video games, comic books, whatever, as long as it piques our interest or tickles our fancy, we're going to cover it right here. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing.